Can you tell me what a truce between the United States and China actually looks like?
Well, I think you're seeing it, John. From my perspective, the Trump administration has always been the most transparent on trade policy and what they hope to accomplish. And in this case, what they hope to accomplish, as Secretary Mnuchin said yesterday, is both a lessening of the trade deficit and greater protection of intellectual property and stopping the theft of it, something I assume investors in those categories would want. So what you're seeing here is something we've been predicting all along. I mean, which is, by and large, the Trump administration is going after specific actions where they think national security is at stake, or the consumer interests and the market interests, frankly, of the United States are at stake. And that's what you're seeing with these steel and aluminum tariffs. That's what you're seeing with the IP actions.
Terry, when do we start to see results? If the Treasury Secretary is hopeful that we get a truce, I'm trying to understand when we see results and what the results look like. What can the Chinese give to the United States over the coming weeks, coming months to satisfy them?
Well, I think it's there's a short-term and a medium to longer-term timeline here, John. The short-term timeline is, and again, Secretary Mnuchin, I think, was transparent about this yesterday. The short-term timeline is that nothing happens on tariffs while meaningful negotiations are going on. Yeah. In the medium and long term, again, the United States has been transparent, and this goes back since before Mr. Trump became president. The United States has been transparent about what it wants. What it wants, essentially, is the ability for United States companies to operate freely in China in a manner that doesn't require, from the Chinese side, takings of intellectual property, number one. Yeah. And number two, in return for that, the United States is willing to give a freer hand. And the United States also wants lower tariffs inbound to China.
Russ Kostrick, as an investor, do you feel like you've got the transparency you need right now?
In terms of policy, no, I think you never have that much transparency because this is hard to quantify. What I would say is that I'm more concerned about the trade side than the recent spat with Russia. We do know is that political uncertainty is overrated as a driver of the markets unless it starts to affect the real economy. So the question about trade, whether or not this is a catalyst for a slowdown, whether or not this hurts capital investment, to me, that's the bigger issue for markets.
The fundamentals, Krishna, haven't changed, but I go to a note from Eric Nielsen of UniCredit. The risk profile around global growth has changed. The prospect of a growth acceleration globally now has diminished. The prospect that policy tailwinds become policy headwinds has somewhat increased. Would you agree with that?
Well, so I think that is a positive for the markets rather than a negative.
Well, tell me why.
Because effectively that controls the path of interest rates, which at the end of the day is really the most important thing for investors from a long-term perspective. But let me come back to the point that Terry was making earlier, where from a political standpoint, they are trying to create transparency. On the economic front, however, it is extraordinarily transparent from the following standpoint. We have U.S. fiscal deficit widening meaningfully over the next few years, and we are a saving short country. So as a result of that, U.S. trade deficit just cannot tighten. It's really that simple. And if we try to force that to tighten in a meaningful way, effectively will kill the current cycle. And I don't think the Trump administration really wants that. So at the end of the day, the economics are the fundamentals are solid enough and clear enough that at some point they will back off. They will back off gracefully. Hopefully they accomplish something. But at the end of the day, trade deficit cannot come down because
What's really interesting, and I'm looking for your guys' comment too, is this trade war over intellectual property. And obviously, I do believe there should be some intellectual property protections, but at the same time, patents have really just created basically a cartel. And I don't know how patents really foster innovation when you see a lot of companies, all they do is just sit on patents. They stop to innovate. And a good example I can bring up is BlackBerry. BlackBerry was not a good competitor, and obviously Android and Apple and Google phones kind of phase them out of the market. But BlackBerry hasn't gone away because they just created a bunch of patents on their technology, and now all they do is they just sit there and troll and sue people in court to make money off of their patents. And I don't see how that is a good way. And I really do feel like there needs to be some major reform. But the problem is that, this is how big business wants to operate, and in a way, it makes it a lot harder for smaller people to come into the market, just like a cartel. So I do believe that intellectual property should be protected, and hopefully they can figure something out. But long term, I just think it's bullshit when they have these patents for 15, 20 years, and where companies don't innovate. They just basically spend a bunch of money on attorneys and just sit around and sue other companies that are trying to innovate so that they can make money off of the patents that they created 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that's one of my pet peeves. But like I said, let me know what you guys think. And then for this trade war stuff, they make a great point where this deficit is not going away. We're gonna constantly buy more from China than they're gonna buy from us. So what is Trump's end goal? And once again, I have no idea. I can't predict Trump, and I don't know why he did this. Maybe to help his fellow Republicans win in 2018. Maybe because he's just Trump. He's a wild card for me, so I have no idea. And how this all ties into the cryptocurrency market. I was hoping that this volatility would make it where if you want to take a look at this graph, we get a little bump here, but so far it's just been anemic. Our market has been very, very anemic, and in fact we've just been going down, down, down. We still haven't hit our lows. The lowest point was 283 billion, and we're at 309. But I'm hoping for a rally. I mean, it seems like the stock market, the equities, bonds, all of this stuff is in a lot of turmoil. So hopefully these Chinese investors, they get tired of buying U.S. debt and they move into cryptocurrencies. But let me know what you guys think. And on a lighter note, the channel is getting closer and closer. In fact, probably by the time I post this, we're going to be at 5,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And the goal of the channel was 10,000 by the end of the year. So if you haven't had a chance, please subscribe. Please share this with your friends, and I will talk to you guys soon.